Ms. Eleanor Wright was 32 years old when she decided she would not change the grade. It didn't feel like a dramatic decision at the time. There was no raised voice, no confrontation, no righteous speech. Just a quiet click of her mouse as she closed the grading portal and went home for the evening, unaware that this small, private choice would eventually cost far more than she could imagine. She had always believed that rules mattered most when no one was watching. That belief was why she became a teacher in the first place, not for the salary, not for the summers, but for the structure. The certainty. The idea that fairness, when applied consistently, could protect people who had nothing else protecting them. Yet that night, as she drove through the dark streets with her radio off, she couldn't shake the feeling that fairness was about to test her in ways she hadn't prepared for. The student's name was Marcus Hale. Marcus wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't brilliant either. He was quiet, punctual, forgettable in the way some students learn to be. He sat in the third row, near the window, always with a pen that worked and a notebook that stayed closed unless prompted. If Eleanor was being honest, she would admit that she hadn't really seen him until she entered his final grade and noticed the number hovering just below the passing line. A 69. 1 point short. The system made it easy to change. Too easy. A simple override, a justification box, and a drop-down menu that offered polite reasons like clerical adjustment or holistic evaluation. Many teachers used it without thinking. Eleanor herself had adjusted grades before, rounding decimals, correcting calculation errors. But Marcus's grade was mathematically sound. Every test, every assignment, every missed homework had added up cleanly. The number wasn't cruel. It was honest. Still, she paused. Marcus needed that class to graduate. That fact came in an email from the guidance counselor the next morning, written in a tone that sounded helpful, but carried urgency underneath. He has a lot riding on this, the message said. Asterisk college plans. Financial aid. Family expectations. Asterisk Eleanor read it twice, then stared at her screen long enough for it to dim. She told herself she would think about it later. But later came quickly. At lunch, another teacher leaned across the table and lowered her voice. It's just 1 point, she said, as if offering permission. No one's going to audit it. We do it all the time. That sentence sat with Eleanor all afternoon. We do it all the time, not it's fair. Not he earned it. Just we do it all the time. And for the first time, Eleanor wondered how many quiet compromises were hidden inside that phrase, how many times the system bent without anyone noticing until bending became its default shape. After school, Marcus appeared at her door. He stood there longer than necessary, backpack strap clenched in one hand, as if waiting for the room to give him instructions. When he finally spoke, his voice didn't shake. That, more than anything, unsettled her. I know I failed, he said. I just wanted to ask if there's anything I can do. Eleanor looked at him and saw something she hadn't seen before, exhaustion. Not teenage boredom, but adult weariness. The kind that comes from balancing responsibilities no syllabus accounts for. She asked a few questions she wasn't sure she wanted the answers to, and Marcus gave them anyway. Night shifts. A sick mother. Missed assignments that weren't forgotten, just impossible. Still, she didn't promise anything. I'll review your work, she said carefully. It was the only honest sentence she could offer. That night, she did review it. Every assignment, every test, every comment she'd written in red ink months earlier. And as she read, something uncomfortable settled in her chest. Marcus had not been wronged by the grading system. He had been defeated by it, and those were not the same thing. By morning, she had made her decision. She did not change the grade. The fallout did not come immediately. That was the strange part. For a while, nothing happened at all. Marcus stopped coming to school. His name vanished from rosters. Eleanor assumed the story ended there. Another quiet failure absorbed by the system, another student lost without a headline or an investigation. She was wrong. 2 weeks later, the principal called her into his office. The door was closed. The blinds were drawn. There was a printed copy of her grade report on the desk, highlighted in yellow like evidence. The conversation began politely, then shifted, not into anger, but into disappointment. Eleanor was told she had shown a lack of flexibility, that her decision had created unnecessary consequences, that the school's reputation mattered. What you did was technically correct, the principal admitted. But this isn't about technicalities. That sentence echoed in Eleanor's mind long after the meeting ended. This isn't about technicalities. She wondered what exactly it was about and why correctness suddenly felt like a liability. By the end of the month, her contract renewal was quietly delayed. No explanation. No accusation. Just silence. Colleagues stopped sitting with her at lunch. Conversations lowered when she entered the room. Someone joked once about her being the moral compass, and everyone laughed a little too hard. Eleanor realized then that refusing to bend had marked her, not as principled, but as dangerous. Someone who might remind others of rules they preferred to forget. Months later, she received a letter. It wasn't from Marcus. It was from a community college. A notice confirming his enrollment. Attached was a short note, written in careful handwriting, thanking her for being honest, even when it hurt. He wrote that failing her class forced him to take a longer route, one that cost him time, money, pride. But it also taught him something he hadn't learned before, that systems don't change unless someone feels their weight. Eleanor read the letter 3 times. By then, she had accepted a position at a different school, one that valued compliance over consistency. She did her job well. She followed policies. She kept her head down. But something had shifted permanently. Every time she entered a grade, she felt the echo of that one point, not as regret, but as a reminder of what fairness demands when no one is watching. Years later, long after Marcus's name faded from memory, Eleanor overheard a new teacher ask, "Does 1 point really matter?" She didn't answer, because she knew the truth. 1 point can cost a student a future. 1 point can cost a teacher a career. And sometimes, the quietest consequences are the ones that reveal the system exactly as it is. And now, the question isn't about Eleanor. It's about you. If you were standing where she stood, staring at that screen, hovering over that 1 point, what would you have done? Would you have bent the rule to protect a future, knowing it might quietly erase your own integrity? Or would you have held the line, even if the cost was invisible at first and devastating later? Some people will say she was heartless. Others will say she was brave. And many will admit they've been on both sides of that decision, as the one who needed mercy or the one who had the power to give it. That's why stories like this don't end when the grade is entered. They live on in comment sections, in classrooms, in offices, and in the choices we make when no one is watching. So tell us, what would you have done? Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing felt wrong, or where bending the rules felt necessary? Share your story below. Someone reading it might be standing at their own crossroads right now. And if you believe the quiet decisions matter just as much as the loud ones, subscribe to Quiet Consequences. Because the smallest choices often carry the heaviest weight.